After a grueling work week, you finally get 2 precious days off to relax and recharge. But the truth is, you almost never actually recover. Those are two completely different things. And your body, your nervous system, is quietly keeping score of every single debt you owe, whether you admit it or not. Just look at a typical evening for you. You shut your laptop at 7 p.m. You grab a quick bite to eat. You throw on a TV show or lie in bed scrolling through TikTok or YouTube shorts for hours on end. You go to sleep late because it always feels like the day never really came to an end. And then the next morning you wake up. You drag the exact same tiredness from yesterday right out of bed with you. You did everything the internet told you to do about self-care. You took a break. You took the whole weekend off. You even took a week of vacation back in the summer. But just 2 weeks after getting back to work, you're right back to being chronically exhausted. You start asking yourself, am I burned out? Am I just weak? Or do successful people out there have some secret productivity setting I was never given? Most of us misdiagnose our own problem. We think it's a quantity issue. I didn't get enough sleep. I didn't take enough time off. I need a longer vacation. But behavioral psychology shows us a harsh, polar opposite reality. The amount of time you spend not working is a surprisingly weak predictor of whether you actually recover. 2 people can take the exact same Saturday off. One comes back to work on Monday brimming with energy. The other comes back just as drained as they were on Friday afternoon. Their hours off were identical. But what happened inside those hours was completely different. You don't lack time off. You lack the technique to rest. Rest is a skill with a clear set of mechanics. And today, we're going to break those mechanics wide open. To understand why your approach to rest is failing, look at where the modern science of elite performance actually started. Back in 1993, psychologist Anders Ericsson ran a famous study at the Berlin Music Academy. He sorted violinists into groups based on their level of mastery. The finding everyone remembers is that the best ones logged more practice hours. But the finding almost nobody repeats is what those top violinists did when they weren't practicing. The elite group slept about an hour more per night than the lower performing group. They napped roughly 3 hours a week, compared to less than 1 hour for the rest. And most importantly, their practice was capped at around 4 hours a day, broken into distinct sessions rather than one giant, heroic grind. The top performers on Earth weren't the ones resting the least. They were resting the most deliberately. For them, recovery wasn't just whatever was left over when work ran out. It was a core part of their arsenal. So what actually makes an hour of rest count when so many of yours clearly don't? In 2007, researchers Sabine Sonnentag and Charlotte Fritz published a psychological model identifying 4 core experiences required for real recovery. If any hour of your time off doesn't contain these 4 elements, it's basically just wasted time. Pillar 1. Psychological detachment. This is the big one, but it's also the exact thing almost all of us are getting wrong. Psychological detachment means mentally disconnecting from work, not just physically stepping away. So, what does the fake version you're running every day look like? You're sitting at dinner with your family, with the people you love, but half your brain is drafting a response to a Slack message from 4 p.m. You're standing in the shower, running a meeting that hasn't even happened yet. You're lying in bed, declaring the workday officially over, but the work file in your head stays wide open because you're terrified that closing it means losing control. And here's the part that stings the most. Your phone is not rest. Scrolling is the single most common thing we do to relax, and it fails completely on a psychological level. First off, it doesn't detach you. It constantly feeds your brain a steady stream of everyone else's output, their achievements, their ambitions, their lives running faster than yours. Second, it keeps your nervous system on high alert. It's the only form of rest that leaves you feeling more wound up and drained than when you started. You burn 2 hours scrolling, no baseline gets restored, no energy debt gets paid. You haven't taken a real break in years, you've just been living through interruptions. Pillar 2. Relaxation. Relaxation in this psychological model means something very specific and a little bit boring. Low activation, low mental and physical effort. It's simply bringing your nervous system down to cool off. Every day, we consume a fake version of relaxation. The show you binge watch is packed with drama. The news you check before bed triggers outrage. The video game you play spikes your heart rate for 2 straight hours. None of these take hard physical labor, so you assume it's rest. But in reality, none of it allows your nervous system to actually dial down. There's another counterfeit that's even more dangerous, and it's the one high performers run into: collapse. You grind relentlessly for weeks until your body simply refuses to function. You lie wrecked in bed all day Sunday, unable to do anything, unable to think. Don't kid yourself. That isn't relaxation. That's a total system failure. You didn't choose it, you couldn't schedule it, and it repairs your body far less than you think. Think about a good bow. A bow only has power because it alternates. Drawn, released, unstrung, drawn again. An archer who leaves his bow strung day after day doesn't end up with a bow that's ready for battle. He ends up with a useless stick of wood because a bow held under tension long enough loses its spring. Your body and mind are that bow. Burnout isn't something that happens after one crazy work week. Burnout is the result of 1,000 nights where your bow was never unstrung. Pillar 3. Mastery. This is the one that completely flips the conventional wisdom on rest on its head. We always assume that after an exhausting day at work, the absolute best way to rest is to do nothing. Zero effort, zero learning, zero challenge. But Sonnentag's research proves the exact opposite. Mastery, engaging in activities that take a little effort and give you a genuine sense of getting better at something, turns out to be one of the most powerful drivers of recovery. It sounds counterintuitive. Why burn energy to recover energy? Because resting isn't about hoarding energy like a battery. True recovery is about replacing what a specific type of stress drained from you. When you spend an hour learning a song, cooking a recipe you've never tried, rock climbing, painting, or practicing a language you suck at an activity you chose, where no one is grading or judging you, you replenish a kind of energy that passive consumption can't even touch. The enemy here is the trap of believing that any effort at all during your time off is a betrayal of your rest. So you choose to sit completely still, and then you wonder why you feel hollow instead of recharged. An hour spent struggling to paint a terrible picture will restore your mind far better than 4 hours of mindless, short-form video consumption ever could. The only rule: it can't be tied to KPIs, and it can't be for your paycheck. Pillar 4. Control. The final pillar is all about authorship. Control means you get to decide exactly what happens in your free time. Your schedule, your choices, your pace. The fake version looks like this. You have time off, but everyone else is quietly running it for you. Your evening belongs to whoever pops up in your inbox or texts you. Your weekend belongs to some social obligation you blindly agreed to back in March. Your vacation belongs to a family group chat and a crammed itinerary. You had time off, but you had zero control inside it. And a stretch of time where you have no authorship will never restore you the way a much shorter window that's completely your call will. The cost of stubbornness and your action plan. Take a hard look at how you're running your life. You bank an entire year's worth of recovery into a single 1-week vacation in July. Research actually shows that the benefits of long vacations are real, but they completely fade within 1 to 2 weeks of stepping back into the office. You push your system to maximum capacity for 11 months, expecting 7 days on a beach to fix everything. But that container starts leaking by your 3rd day back at your desk. You spend the rest of the year chasing the next window of rest, promising yourself, just make it through this quarter, and I'll finally take a break. You do all of this to protect your output. You skip your breaks because there's too much on your plate. You open your laptop at 11 p.m. because you tell yourself that's what committed people do. But what you're actually protecting is just the appearance of effort. while the engine producing your work quietly breaks down inside. The exact same task costs you way more energy this year than it did last year. You compensate for that drag by piling on more hours, which only jacks up the energy cost even higher. You aren't protecting your output, you're just making it ridiculously expensive. So, how do you snap out of this loop? You can't discipline yourself into relaxing. Trying hard to relax is like trying hard to fall asleep. The effort itself is the very thing blocking the outcome. The goal isn't to chase down more hours off. The goal is to change what happens inside the hours you already have. Here are 3 steps you can take right now. 1. Build an ending. Detachment fails because your day has no closing ceremony. Work stops, but nothing marks the finish line, so the mental files stay open. Before you shut your laptop, write down the 3 things that actually matter tomorrow. Unfinished tasks scream in your head because they don't have a home. Putting them on paper tells your nervous system they're safe to leave behind. Then, physically cross a line, take a 10-minute walk, change your clothes, or take a shower. Your body reads physical transitions way better than your mind reads mental decisions. 2. Rest with your hands, not your feed. Pick one activity that's mildly challenging, has 0 audience, and tracks no metrics. Cook something tricky, pick up an instrument, draw, or climb. It has to require a little effort, that's the active ingredient. If you're immediately good at it, it won't work. Protect that time like a high-priority business meeting, because it restores you far more than an entire evening of passive scrolling ever will. 3. Take back one window you own. Stop trying to overhaul your whole schedule. Just reclaim 1 hour, a few days a week, that belongs entirely to you. No one else gets to place obligations inside it, and you decide what happens. Stop saving your recovery for a single container once a year. Distribute it. A well-built Tuesday evening is worth more to your long-term output than an expensive week on a beach in July. When you get this right, you don't become softer, passive, or less ambitious. You become significantly harder to compete with. When you show up on a random Wednesday morning genuinely recovered, your cognitive capacity is unmatched. You make better decisions, solve problems faster, and most importantly, your compensatory effort drops. The exact same work costs you far less energy to produce. Everyone around you is running on fumes, quietly compensating for their exhaustion with caffeine, extra hours, and self-criticism. If you're the one person who arrives at full capacity day in and day out, you don't have to outwork them. You're just not paying the heavy tax they're paying every single day. That's what being dangerous actually means. It's not about relentless grinding, it's about sustainable power. Over 2,000 years ago, the Roman poet Ovid wrote, "What lacks its alternating rest will not endure." And right after, he used the exact same metaphor. A bow that is kept constantly strung will eventually snap. He didn't need modern science or diary studies to figure that out. He just observed human behavior and recognized a fundamental law of nature. Nothing that never releases stays strong. Not your focus, not your ambition, and definitely not you. So, look at the 4 mechanics we covered: detachment, relaxation, mastery, and control. Which one is broken in your life right now? It's time to unstring your bow.